Most people don't chase their greatness. They trade in their potential instead. They cash in their calling for comfort. And look, your crowd will cheer for you as long as you do the same thing. As long as you keep going the same direction, the same pace, the same rhythm. As long as you're playing it safe, you will feel their approval. But the moment that you start to climb, I mean really climb, they get quiet. The cheers stop. The texts slow. The support dries up. And it's not because that you've done something wrong, but because you're doing something that they gave up on themselves long ago. A friend of mine felt that call coming from within. A new city, a new job, a blank slate, no roadmap, no guarantees, just a deep pull in her gut that she couldn't shake. So she kept it close to the vest at first. Not out of fear, really out of wisdom. She knew what would come the second she spoke it out loud. Even she couldn't fully explain the why. It really didn't make sense. Not on paper, not to others, but it made sense to her. She felt that pull. It was a beat of a drum that nobody else could hear, and something deep inside of her said, "Go!" But as that day drew closer, she cracked the door open, and right on cue, the voices rolled in. "Wait, are you sure? Well, isn't that risky? Well, what's your plan?" And maybe, the worst of all, just a cold, judgmental, "But why?" Even family, friends, mentors, you know, the ones who should have been her biggest supporters, they questioned her, they undermined her, and they nudged her subtly or overtly to stay. Not out of hate or some ill will, but because her boldness exposed something inside of them. It actually reminded them of the purpose that they gave up on themselves long ago. The silent trades that they made for a quieter, safer life. All the little moments when they heard that same kind of drum beat themselves, when their heart stirred with passion or with purpose or possibility, and they looked it in the eye and they surrendered to fear. They didn't march. They rationalized. They convinced themselves that they were making the smart choice. Rather than the drum beat, they listened to the loudest voices in their life, and they replaced purpose with excuse. They told themselves that they'd circle back on it maybe a little later. Just the timing isn't right. That comfort was good enough. But deep down, they knew they weren't pausing. They were surrendering. So when she dared to go, when she chose to climb, it wasn't really her plan they questioned. It was their own story that they couldn't face. She eventually stayed. At the last minute, she succumbed to the voices, to the doubt, to that seductive feeling of being wanted, of belonging. Not because the plan was flawed or that anything changed, but because comfort came wrapped up in approval, familiar voices, familiar rhythms, familiar doubt. And that's the danger. When you start to feel the tug, when your calling begins to take shape and your conviction becomes real, the resistance usually doesn't show up as loud disapproval or even open confrontation. It often comes in the quieter form, in the well-meaning concerns, the subtle second guesses, the thoughtful questions, laced with hidden doubt. It sneaks up on you. It doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels like people are looking out for you. It feels like acceptance even. Love, friendship, and the worst, belonging. That sense of belonging feels like support that we all want. You'll hear yourself saying, "They just need me here a little longer." Or, "That's cool, they're just looking out for me." Or maybe, "They want me to be smart. They want me to be safe." But that's the beginning of you trading your purpose for comfort. And if you don't spot the signal right there, it's likely to sneak by you entirely. Because part of what they are saying is true, but it's not the whole truth, and that's where the problem is. The rest of the truth is what becomes very hard to face. Because when you step towards something bold, something bigger than what makes sense on paper, you start to stir something uncomfortable in the people around you. Even if they don't say it, your courage forces them, at some level at least, to reckon with their own concessions, the ambitions that they shelved, the visions they abandoned. The moments they felt the fire and they shrunk back with excuses. They remember, even if they don't want to. And when you don't back down, when you keep moving, that makes them feel exposed. And that's hard to sit with. So they call you brave, but maybe unreasonable. Visionary, but maybe a little reckless. They ask questions they don't actually want the answers to. They praise your spirit, but then suggest maybe now's not the best time. And the reason it works is because we all want to belong. We want people we love to see us. We want to feel supported, not alone. But here's the big lie. Maybe you're not ready just yet. That what you're feeling from them is support. That their approval is a safe place to land for now. It's not. It's a holding pattern. A comfortable net made by people who gave up on their climb and want to keep you within reach so they don't have to face the feelings inside of themselves that will come to the surface if they watch you rise. And it's not that they're malicious, they're just scared. Because if you succeed, they'll really have to face what they've avoided. If you follow the drumbeat that they ignored, it will echo in them and it'll get loud. It will get unrelenting. And over the years, they've gotten really good at silencing it. So they'll wrap you in praise and they'll drape you in doubt and call it care, but it's not. Listen, it's gravity. It compounds, pulling harder with each passing day. If you mistake this for love, you'll stay. You'll fold like a lawn chair, and you'll convince yourself that it was a wise choice. The longer you stay, the more you replace your passions with justification, fire with logic, purpose with permission from others, the harder it becomes to break free at all. Without realizing it, not only do you silence your own drumbeat, you become part of the gravitational pull. You become part of that crowd who questions, doubts, and softly undermines the next brave soul who attempts their own takeoff. I've felt the pull of comfort dressed up as care many times in my life. One of the more recent, and honestly one of the more unexpected places it showed up was in my health and fitness journey. After a couple years of teasing from my boys, I finally took their challenge and started tracking my food. It was a small shift. It was just basic, simple awareness at first. Nothing radical. But that awareness changed everything. Once you see what's been hiding in plain sight, you really can't unsee it. That one habit opened the door. I began to adjust how I ate. I started reading more. I started understanding macronutrients, energy, recovery process. With what started as casual tracking turned into meal prep and heavier lifting and longer walks and sharper focus. And all that felt aligned, not obsessive, not performative, just honest. I wasn't chasing approval or a midlife makeover of some sort. I just knew I was capable of more. And honestly, I was done negotiating with that truth. But then the pushback came, and not from strangers. And here's the weird part. Never from people more disciplined or more healthy or more fit than me. It came from my friends. It came from people close to me, people I thought that would be inspired. They were not. They'd smile when they said it, but the message always landed the same. Why so serious? You're married. It's not like your wife is going to love you more if you get in shape and get ripped. Relax. You don't need to impress anyone. At first, I brushed it off, but it kept coming. Subtle, but persistent. The kind of resistance that doesn't shout. No, it whispered. That's when I saw it real clear. It wasn't about me. This was about what my effort reflected back to them. See, when you raise your standard, even privately, you create a contrast. And it's not because you're judging anyone else, but because your actions disrupt the unspoken agreement to stay comfortable, to stay as you were. You become a mirror for the places others have really stopped believing in what's possible for them, for themselves. It's not your routine that threatens them. It's your refusal to settle for subpar. I recognize this feeling. I'd been here before, actually, just in different arenas of life. I'd heard the whispers and the quiet admonitions not to grow too big, to remember my roots, or to stay humble, that success isn't everything and money can't buy happiness, and on and on and on it went. But then, like now, it was never from someone further ahead of me on the path. It always came from those who had stopped climbing themselves, I noticed. Witnessing my friends succumb to this seduction of familiarity and comfort and abandon her plans brought it all together clearly for me. The warnings were always about protecting those doing the warning from the discomfort of comparison, from the guilt that they'd feel watching her rise while they stood still. Because as you climb, the support thins. It's like oxygen at altitude. It goes lighter the higher you go. And most of your circle, they don't actually want you to make that climb at some level. If you're not careful, you'll shrink just enough to stay welcome. You'll replace your passion with explanation. You'll stay small enough to keep others comfortable, and you'll probably call it wisdom. But if you want to rise, you gotta get comfortable with the silence that follows it. And when the voices come, here's how you check them. Are they coming from someone further up the mountain, or just someone yelling from the base, hoping that you're gonna climb back down? Look, founders, this isn't just about your personal life. The same gravity shows up everywhere. You wore every hat when you started your business. You took every late night call. You responded to client messages before they hit send. Growth demands altitude, and you can't climb while staying available to everyone all the time. As you start to show up differently, you're gonna see that same gravitational pull from vendors, from employees even, your customers. Some won't follow you up the mountain. And it's not because they can't, it's because they don't want to. Even friends or peer entrepreneur groups might start to fade out as you stop playing the chaos game and you start building from clarity and from cadence. Because whether it's your fitness, your schedule, your hiring processes, your communication standards, your rise in any arena exposes their drift. Your discipline makes others' disorganization really hard to ignore. Your alignment makes their excuses feel quite heavy. And your clarity, it forces them to confront the fog that they've been living in. And they don't always respond with applause, right? They respond with friction. But if you're meant to rise, if you're convinced that you must rise, then you'll need to do just what was mentioned before. Get ready for the silence as the oxygen thins. Get ready to fire some clients. Maybe replace part of your team. Maybe go it alone, if only for a while, to get to your new levels. You're not just scaling a company. You're scaling out of old dynamics, old agreements, old versions of you that made everyone else feel safe. The very traits that got you applause in the season will get you resistance in the next. So the next time the voices get loud, the support wears thin, when the jokes start and the resistance gets more intense, don't back down. Your circle may shrink for a season, but don't let that be the cause for you to shrink. Your moves might be questioned by everybody else, but don't undermine the moves you know you need to make. This is the altitude. The higher you go, the thinner their approval, but the clearer the view. So check the voices, check their altitude, and check if they ever made the climb themselves. Then listen for that beat inside your chest, that rhythm pulling you higher. The silence isn't failure, it's altitude. And if you weren't built for it, you wouldn't feel the call.